We now move on to an exciting part of this conference, the panel discussion on business success through AI. This discussion will be moderated by Dr. Abdul Basit Sheikh, Assistant Professor of Management at School of Business Studies, IBA. Dr. Sheikh brings extensive expertise in management and a keen understanding of AI transformative effect on business. Our panelist for the discussion is Mr. Abrar Ahmed Mir, the Chief Digital Innovation and Financial Inclusion Officer at Habib Bank Limited. Our next panelist is Syed Asif from CDC, Chief Information and Digital Officer. Our third panelist for today's discussion is Mr. Farhan Akram, the Chief Financial Officer of Dawlance Group. Our fourth panelist joining us is Ms. Sara Saeed Khurram, the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Sehat Kahani. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Abdul Basit Sheikh and his team panelists for what promising to be an enlightening discussion.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen. Wa salatu wa salam ala rasulil kareem. Thank you very much for the invite, and thank you very much to all the guests for coming. I want to start by setting a context to this discussion. Historically, technology has never replaced human beings. If we actually look back to from the wheel to the steam age and so on and so forth, technology has never replaced human beings. What it's actually done is that augment human behavior. So it's actually helped human beings along in some of their tasks. But AI is different. The traditional technologies helped us in terms of our labor activities, helping make our life easier. But AI is something that's really penetrating or ingressing, diffusing into our cognitive abilities. So you now have technology being able to do what we once used to do because it was only us who could think. So on the one side, we have the hype of AI. It will replace you. It will replace human beings. And we've gone through this discussion. And on the other side, we've got institutes being set up that are talking about human-centered AI. Sorry, we've one more guest. Dr. Nayyar Hussain from Salaam, Takaful. My apologies, sir. I assume that you would do it, please. My sincere apologies. Okay, so the adoption of technology and AI now becomes crucial. Most of the panelists here will know about the Gartner hype cycle. So when you have the beginning of technology, you have a trigger of technology, there's a big discussion, big hype about it. And you get to a peak of expectations. It can do this, it can do that. AI will do this, AI will do that. And then when those expectations don't materialize, it falls to a trough of disillusionment. Well, it's not doing this, it can't do this, it can't do this. And then it reaches what we call a productivity plateau, where its real augmentation of human behavior comes into existence. I wanted to put this context because it's important to understand that AI doesn't sit with technologists, and AI should not sit with technologists. AI should always sit with the business The examples given by Dr. Nora are very interesting and very important because she has put technology and AI at the center of healthcare. It is the healthcare individuals who shape the use of AI, and similarly, it is the business people who will shape the use of AI. Setting this context, if we start with, there's order of questions, we'll have 2 questions and then responses by our panelists. I have to start with you, Abrar Mirsab. The banking industry has been the most digitally advanced across the world, and even so in Pakistan. So I'd like you to give an example of the most innovative business problem you have solved using AI. And please try and explain preferably in non-technical terms, please.
Much. So first of all, I think the lucky thing for all of you is I'm not a technical person. So even if I try to and I pretend to, I can't do a technical conversation. So I will keep it a very simple, plain English conversation. I think I'll just take a step back. When we talk about AI, everybody just gets excited about going out and getting some algorithms and running some black box and getting an output. I think it's important for an organization, especially like an organization like us, an industry like us, or for that matter, healthcare, etc., where we really need to be very disciplined, very responsible about how we think of AI, how we think of using AI. So we need to get some of the basic building blocks right. So for us, it has been about getting our data quality and the data integrity right to begin with. It's been about getting a lot of process automation through robotics going in place so that, as Dr. Nora also talked about, system integration, we are able to get that piece out of the way. It's also about us constantly thinking about data privacy, about the ethical issues that can come up. It's about looking at the regulatory environment, the compliance environment. It's about looking at the ethical dilemmas that you face, especially if you're using either a black box algorithms or the algorithms that you think you know what they're doing, but you don't really have the full capability and the capacity to explain those. So for example, if we were to use, and we have done some tests using machine learning, for example, to talk about customer churn. So predicting what customer could potentially churn. That's a low risk application of AI. Versus if I was to use an algorithm to go out and talk about automated fraud prevention and taking a decision in real time, should this transaction be allowed to go through or not? Or for that matter in healthcare, if you're looking at, for example, MRI, diagnostics, I think intelligence can assist a doctor better in pointing out this is where you look at. But if you let AI take over the complete diagnostic, or you let the AI take over the complete role of a legal advisor for you, and you start taking actions around it. So a lot of these things one really needs to think through, because there are liability issues, there are privacy issues, there are societal issues that you can start to face, there are biases that you really don't understand. To be honest, today if you go out and you talk to real deep technologists and you ask them how does a neural network work, it's very hard for people to explain how it works. So yes, I think one should look at going into using AI, but we need to be very thoughtful about how we use AI. So for us, it's mostly about using some of the Gen AI tools now to do some initial work, some initial test cases, or we're using some of the churn models or machine learning, etc., to come up with some churn models. So where it is either a kind of a engagement which is not a very high risk from a customer perspective in terms of the outcomes and or for the organization, and also where it helps us improve our efficiency, improves our accuracy. It saves time for a lot of our staff. If they're looking for some information, a chat GPT kind of a tool helps them access that. So we're taking it one step at a time. And one of the most important challenges that we face, and I think that's a global challenge, is getting the right talent out there. Because this whole concept, this whole industry is in its infancy, literally. So finding the right people that you can then put a lot of faith in, that the kind of algorithms that they develop or they write or they recommend, and when they say that this is going to be the explanation of the outcome, I think getting to that level of confidence is something that we're still some distance away from that.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody understood the context being talent that actually applies AI correctly. So thank you very, very much for that emphasis. Farhan Akram Sahab, you're a seasoned chartered accountant with C-suite experience across Sala Engineering, Automotive Parts, and Dawlance. With this career spanning almost 25 years, how have you seen the adoption of digital technologies in your life, essentially? I mean, you're a chartered accountant, so you've seen a lot.
So, thank you for that. So, it's been an interesting journey. So, I was a kid in the 1980s, right? So, I grew up without internet, without Google. I'm that old. And then I started working around mid-90s. We used to have computers, but those computers would generally be shared computers. We would have a computer between maybe 4 or 5 employees. But there's a very interesting question that, or an idea which sort of sparked off when my colleague Abrar said something. And that is the ability and the willingness to adopt AI. I think the issue is that you won't be able not to. You can't afford not to. So what's happened in the last 25 years? That was the question. I would say for the first 10 years, probably the only disruption that happened was email came in. But then as communication and as connectivity increased, as bandwidths increased, what happened? You had better communication, you had social media, you had not just emails, but also videos and video calls that came in. What happened next after that? You had e-commerce come in, you had marketplaces come in, and by the way, this is all the last 10 years. I'm not going to go, you asked about 25, but just the last 10 years has been social media, has been e-commerce, has been online marketplaces. And what's happened with businesses? That businesses which were generally B2B ended up becoming B2C, right? And everybody wanted to get that additional slice of the pie, so to speak, and they wanted to sell to the end consumer. And previously, if there was a business that was, say, selling to a distributor or a dealer, who was then selling to a retailer, who was then selling to a consumer, ended up selling to the consumers. And automatically, the amount of data points which we had, they increased many, many fold. Now, Dawlance, to give an example, we sell about a couple of million products a year. They're technologically, I would say, mid-level. Some of them are dumb appliances, some of them have IoT, some of them have software in them, are programmable, and some of them are plain vanilla, like, let's say, a blender. So the challenge that's come upon us as businesses is now that the amount of data has increased. Now the next question is, what do I do with this data? I need to go through millions of data points. I need to be able to process them quickly. So automatically now I'm forced to do RPA or robotic process automation because I can't scroll through all of that data myself. So that's again something that has been forced on us. What do I need to do more? I need to start thinking about machine learning. We've been doing a program on machine learning, using machine learning, by the way, for the last 3 years. Our parent company that's in Turkey, Arçelik, they have, for the last couple of years, developed, they've actually established a directorate of AI. So they're also very serious about that. And the pace of change, I mean, if I can just say, you've got two words written behind us, innovation and disruption. So it's intelligence that actually causes innovation. And artificial intelligence is going to cause innovation even faster, which is going to cause disruption even faster. But I'll just close by giving you one small story. Last year in December, I was sitting in Istanbul, and our director of AI was on stage, and she actually played a recording, it was in Turkish, of a conversation. Somebody had called the call center, the customer call center, to basically lodge a complaint about a faulty washing machine. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. I have this problem. I'm so sorry you've got this problem. Can you describe it more? Sure, this is what happens. Again, I'm very sorry you're having to do this. Can you give us a good time that when our technicians can come over and look at it? And they said, sure, I can do it this time. Said, thank you, sister. Thank you for your help. Shut the phone and never realized he was talking to a bot. Right? So that's very scary. So if you're somebody who's working in a call center or is running a call center, I'd be very worried. So when we talk about disruption and how disruption is going to hit you and can you ignore it? I don't think so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For all of those who are budding graduates, imagine if you go for an interview and you fail and you realize you actually failed by a bot. It can be quite demeaning to your personal ego. Okay, Saeed Shah, thank you very much, sir. AI and data sciences are an integral part of the asset management sciences. And I use this word in the more mature markets. I hope you sort of understand the context of that. Obviously, the West has far more deeper capital markets and so on and so forth. So what is the use of AI and data sciences in your field? And maybe you can give us an example that we can relate to.
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. And thank you, Dr. for providing Central Depository Company this opportunity to share with how technology and more specifically AI, artificial intelligence, is helping the capital market and asset management industry in particular. So I would say there are 5 different use cases where AI is being used here in Pakistan as well, to a different degree, especially in the capital markets. The number one is the data analysis and the insights from that data. So that's one major area, be it the industry that Dawlance represents, be it the industry that the banking sector represents. Data analysis and the insights from the data is one thing that is being taken for at least a decade now. So that is one good area where we can find out, with the AI, we can now find out more insights into that data, what are the trends, what are the problems, what are the challenges. This is one major area that where we used in. And the second is the operational efficiency and the risk management. These two areas are very important, and I can narrate that since 2008, when there was the last incident of a systemic risk in the capital markets in Pakistan, no such incident has taken place. After that, it's almost 15 years now, because now we are much better able to utilize the data and take the insights. And by we, I doesn't mean that only the institutes that represents the capital market, but also our regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. Mr. Nayyar, my colleague, used to be there in the insurance division. Now he's representing an insurance company here. He understands that the amount of data that is now being able to process by all the players has made that transparency and governance into taking care of the risk management, which is very critical for our business continuity and to create trust for the customers, for Pakistani customers, for overseas Pakistanis to invest in the capital markets, has played a key role. The two other areas that AI can be very helpful, one is narrated by a colleague from Dawlance, that the customer experience part of it. Here, at least I would say that the capital market is not as much up to date as the banking sector might be, as the consumer industry might be. And the last is the product innovation side, because with the data, not only we can identify the anomalies, we can also identify trends, we can also identify what customer requires. So here we are also a bit lagging behind. But the other three areas, the operational and risk management, the data insights, is the area that we have been using for quite long. And just to add to the conversation that this robotic process automation, which can be defined as an attended automation category, because here a person is engaged with the computer to do a certain task. The AI is the next evolution of that, that now you have removed a person from that. You have trained the computer with the help of a model that they can take the unstructured data as well, and they can drive their own logic. So this is the evolution from the AI perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sara, I spent some time working within this hospital, trying to automate readings of X-rays and CT scans, so on and so forth. And one of my greatest challenges was actually trying to take doctors to understand, well, okay, what's in your mind? How does that translate into the equivalent digital model? And you've gone through a substantial transformation yourself, okay? So you graduated as a doctor, practiced for almost 6 years, and then moved on to entrepreneurship. So I'm intrigued, okay, and literally intrigued by a mindset that starts as a medic, entrepreneur, to a digital mindset that presents effectively what is a medical service. So maybe you can sort of talk through that journey and the challenges and the opportunities.
I'll start with a very personal story because that's how I started. As Professor said, there aren't a lot of doctors who follow the path of entrepreneurship because when we're studying in medical school, we always thought of a clinical way of handling a problem between a doctor and a patient. As Professor also said, there is a big doctor-patient mismatch that exists in a lot of countries in the world. It exists in Pakistan as well. So we're a population of 240 million people. We have 240,000 doctors, so we should have one doctor for 1,000 patients. Interestingly, in Pakistan, a lot of the 80% of our medical workforce is made up of women, which is a great thing, but unfortunately, a lot of women doctors don't practice, and it is a huge reality that we continue to ignore year after year, that half of our female doctor workforce never practices after graduation, so much so that it has a very interesting name. It's called the Doctor Bride phenomena. There are articles written on it. It's discussed in all of our households, the Doctor Bahu or the Doctor Bride or the Doctor Beti. What it does in a country like Pakistan, where there is also a lot of brain drain, as she said very correctly, that 26,000 doctors have migrated out of the country, is that one patient, one doctor for 1,000 patients decreases down to half a doctor for 1,000 patients. And 85% of those doctors want to work in the urban areas. Now, I saw this stark reality while I was training as a doctor, working in the largest hospital in Karachi, civil hospital, where I saw a lot of patients came to the hospital in the medical ward, unfortunately to die comfortably, because they did not have a doctor in their community to treat them. Many doctors want to work in the urban areas, so ultimately in our rural areas, not a lot of doctors are available. So patients come to tertiary care hospitals only where there is no other way to be treated at home, and this is where their diseases are at a point of just management and no cure. I also fell through the Dr. Bride phenomena, in which I had to leave my residency midway as I conceived my first daughter in radiology, and I sat at home for 2 to 3 days, and I realized that I can't sit at home. So I started doing a clinic in Sultanabad, which is an urban slum behind the US Embassy. A lot of people in Karachi may know about it. And there was no female doctor in that community, so I started doing a primary care clinic. After 9 months, I moved to Lahore with my husband, so I had to leave that clinic. And for the next 6 months, they could not find a single female doctor to replace me in a city like Karachi. No one wanted to go in a slum in Karachi to provide healthcare to a community. So the nurse of that clinic called me and she said that, listen, we can't find a doctor to replace you. And I was, on my end, going through that Dr. Bride phenomenon. I was bored and depressed at home in Lahore, and I didn't know what to do with my life. So by fluke at that time, or by interest to just deliver medicine, I said, okay, when a patient comes to me, why don't you take me on call? And we started doing call consultations. So I'm in Lahore, in my house, with a 6-month-old daughter. The nurse is in Karachi with the patient in a community that has no female doctor access, and we're doing online consultations. And later on, we switched to video consultations because she said the patient needs to see you. And she stuck a webcam on her laptop to make that possible. That is how I came to understand that a female doctor cannot go out of her house to provide care. It doesn't really matter, because you can bring the patient to the female doctor through a screen, and we can change that notion of half a doctor for 1,000 patients to actually 2 to 3 doctors for 1,000 patients, just enabling care through technology. And that's when I had a light bulb in my head, or what we call aha moment in entrepreneurship, that if technology is the only solution, I still till date, it's been 7 years that I've been working on this, I truly believe that technology is the only way that a country like Pakistan will ever have quality, accessible and affordable healthcare for all its patients. So we started making these clinics in low-income areas because as a doctor, I was very attuned towards doing social good till the time I started the business. So we started creating a network of clinics in low-income areas that only started with doctor-patient consultation, but today we do doctor-patient consultations, we do mental well-being for those communities through online psychiatrists, psychologists. We have e-tools integrated that can do online chest readings, ECG readings, monitoring of vitals. We have an online pharmacy, we have connected labs. So it's a primary healthcare setup within the community. And not just that, we also transition to provide healthcare to consumers, corporates, doing home healthcare. So I really believe that that idea that started with that nurse and me in the clinic has so much applicability today. As we have become one of the leading digital health institutions in Pakistan, very recently we started creating a diagnostic decision support system for doctors. That is an algorithm on the doctor's end sitting behind the screen that helps them to evaluate a patient from 15 minutes to 7 minutes. And it gives them possible 4 diagnosis and treatment options so that even younger doctors who are joining the platform can see more patients as they progress. And this is just one application of AI that we have done in our business. And on the patient's end, we've done personalized reminders for cardiology and hypertension. Because a lot of chronic patients come on our platform and they have no history, which is recorded somewhere, and there is no monitoring for them. So every time they become a new patient with a new case file. So we are now doing appointment reminders, medicine reminders for cardiac and diabetes patients. So the opportunities, as the professor said, are immense. But I think in a country like Pakistan, we have to start somewhere. And I think providing that affordable doctor connection was the spark for me that I was able to provide.
Thank you very much. Saeed and Hussain Sahab, the banking industry is moving towards automated loan approvals. What technologies are being used to achieve automated insurance approvals in Pakistan? And are these improved customer journeys actually increasing adoption, increasing custom?
Salaam, thank you for giving me an opportunity. Actually, I think I have spent almost 9 years at the insurance regulator and now almost 13 years in the insurance industry. I think Pakistan's insurance industry is quite near to the digital adoption. SECP in Pakistan has introduced few years back the regulatory sandbox actually. So to encourage the innovation, and through that regulatory sandbox, there were very quite innovative ideas came to the insurance industry and to the asset management industry and to the capital markets. So one of the outcome of that regulatory sandbox was the digital-only insurance regulatory regime. So SECP set up a regime for the digital-only insurers, and we Salaam Takaful became the first digital insurer of Pakistan. We just got licensed last month. And we are the only first digital life Takaful company in Pakistan. So obviously this digital transformation is, I think it has a tremendous opportunity in the insurance sector, because typically the customer journey of the insurance industry has been quite actually lengthy, and it typically takes at least 2 to 3 years for policy issuance. And when the customer journey is completely digital, so it brought down from 2 to 3 days to just 10 or 15 minutes. So I think this is first transformation. Secondly, obviously the customer services, for example, taking withdrawals or taking policy changes. So all these things become quite, improved when the digital model is applied to the insurance industry. And I think the third biggest advantage of digital business model in the insurance sector is the enhanced transparency. Because when you deal with the customers and you provide them information digitally, so you need to have more transparency in your products, in your services actually. And one other area in which of AI in insurance, which we have experienced internationally and which has a potential in Pakistan as well, is the augmented underwriting, or we call it actually predictive underwriting actually. Underwriting in insurance is a process of assessment of risks of individuals and corporations. So it is obviously normally it is done manually, but as a first transformation, the underwriting process has been automated actually. So we called it actually automated underwriting. But the next phase which we foresee happening in Pakistan is the predictive underwriting or augmented underwriting. So in that underwriting actually you basically project the different risk factors associated with your individuals and corporates, and based on that you decide on the risk rates. So I think these are the areas of the digital transformation or AI in insurance sector.
Thank you very much. Farhan Sahab, as chartered accountants, your life revolves around data. Yeah, I'm sure you eat, drink, breathe, dream data. Have you leveraged data analytics to help you achieve greater insights? Could you give examples of such activities? How would you like to see accounting and finance students, which are really those who you will recruit, to be more tech savvy?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Again, I think like I mentioned in the last sort of soundbite that I had, we don't have a choice now. The pace of change is such. When we joined the profession 25 years ago, the analysis that was needed from us was simply what happened, and that's it. You just needed to give a historical account. It needed to be accurate, but it was a historical account of what happened, and that's what accounting was traditionally. And then evolution happened, and we were told that no, we don't just need to know what happened, we need to know why it happened or how it happened. And that's when financial analysis started coming in as well. And then thanks to big data accumulation, thanks to machine learning, thanks to AI, now 2 new questions have come in. And those 2 new questions are staring us in the face every day, and are going to be staring all of your students and the future accountants and finance professionals, and that is, what happened, why it happened, what's going to happen next, right? And after that, what should I do about it? So both of those questions are now going to be staring us in the face, that we will need to use predictive analysis to see what's going to happen and how we can best react to it. At Dawlance, we've been working with some AI professionals. We were lucky enough to find some very good talent in Pakistan. And we partnered with them, and we said that let's do a machine learning program specifically on some supply chain challenges that were happening. So this is Pakistan, and this is 3 years ago. So it is possible. It's a bit difficult because in Pakistan, one of the things that people sort of fail to realize before getting into the glitz and glamour of AI is that unfortunately in the country, the level of digitization is very poor. Our records are generally not digital. But again, thanks to AI and thanks to new imaging software, it's easy to convert. But typically, we are not very, very data driven. I think we are more of an emotionally run country. So the first problem that happens with AI is you need to have good digitization levels. You need to have the data there. Even a company like ours, which is a corporate company, professionally run, 40 years history, we realized we had data, Dr. Saab, but its housekeeping wasn't good. So data was there, but it was in silos in different departments, and it wasn't there in any single repository. And when we started the journey, and we were talking with our colleagues, they said that, look, regardless of whether you get success in the project or failure, all your data will be organized very well archived very well and you'll have better access to it. You will get a better read on it. So that was the minimum promise that had been made to us, and then we took the leap of faith. What was our challenge? Our challenge was that we manufacture around 400 plus products. They are made of anything, 20 to 50 different parts. Those parts need to be ordered at least 2 to 3 months in advance. And the products, when they are sold, they have to be sold within certain short windows, because a lot of them are seasonal products. You can't sell air conditioners and refrigerators in winters, and similarly there are other products which are more focused towards winters and so on and so forth. Plus the cost of money, the supply chain challenges that we had. So we had to have a predictive model that would give us a sales forecast, not just of the product, but also the individual SKUs that we would need to make. So that's what we did. We've had quite good success on it. But I'll also give one more thing. Again, this is real life practical application. You can never be done with it. When you're doing machine learning, you'll have to keep on tweaking it, because you'll keep adding new variables to the model. Plus, the weightage that you're giving to those models, they'll change. Climate change, we talked about that earlier. Climate change will disrupt demand. Inflation will disrupt demand. Political turbulence will affect demand. Disposable income will affect demand. Even the Cricket World Cup will affect demand, especially if you're selling televisions like us. So it's something which you'll have to do. And now the other part of your question, that about the newer generation, so my career is going to end in maybe another 10, 12 years, right? And to be honest, I'm not envious of the next ones, because you'll have to constantly reinvent yourself. You'll have to constantly make sure that all the new advances which are coming in, you are abreast with them. Otherwise, you're going to become dinosaurs very, very quickly. And I think that's about all I want to say on this.
Thank you. Farhan Saab opened up the subject of really what is a digital footprint. Okay, we're not really heavily digitized. So Saeed Asif Saab, one of the key issues in managing assets is to feed back daily events, financial, all the necessary markers in the way the economy is developing, to feed that back into the model and therefore make the prediction correctly. How well is Pakistan digitized to enable this? And what can be done further?
Okay, once again, from the capital market perspective, I think the level of digitalization is pretty decent, I would say, because a lot of data is there with the front-end regulators like PSX, like the CDC, National Clearing Company, and our regulators, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. What was happening was that this data, as Dr. Colton mentioned it, these were all silos. They were not talking to each other. So what in the last decade or so, what we have done, our major effort was to make these data systems talk to each other. And I would say that for last 3-4 years, with the help of APIs, which is a common buzzword other than the AI that you might be hearing all of the time, that a lot of integration has taken place. Integration has taken place for the financial inclusion of the underprivileged segments of the society. The banking customer today can now, even if whether he's a Pakistani individual or a Pakistani sitting outside anywhere in the world, can invest in the capital markets just by having an interface through the bank only. He doesn't need to have any interface with the other local players. Just through a bank, they can make investments in Pakistan. They can buy property in Pakistan. So a lot of digitalization has taken place, which is quite useful. And the story that although I've already heard, but today I heard more passionately from Dr. Sara, that this Sehat Kahani is a brilliant initiative. It realizes us that perhaps we don't get poor just because we lack resources. We also remain poor because we don't utilize the available resources that we have. So this is a remarkable story, I must say. We are trying to use the existing resources, just as Nayyar Saab mentioned that the insurance companies had a lot of issues when there were bad agents tricking the customers. There were bad hospitals from the who do employee insurance. There were a lot of bad insurance policies by the customers themselves. The insurance companies were not exchanging this data amongst themselves to improve their operational efficiency. So we came in between, we arranged the digital data of each insurance company, talk to each other so that operational efficiency can brought into the place. So I think a lot of good things are happening place. And today from Dr. Colton's speech, I realized that there is another potential that in Pakistan, as I understand, we can do a cataract operation in less than 500 pounds. Even in 100 pounds, there can be a cataract operation. So there could be a lot of tourism for Britishers who want to do a cataract operation, who are waiting there, can come here in our northern areas, can go for a cataract operation if we try to make this a business opportunity. So a lot of opportunities are there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Saeed, where does the Pakistani insurance industry sit in its adoption of digital technologies compared to the rest of the world? I mean, the banking sector, the assets, I mean, they're at the same level, I'm fairly sure, the banking sector. Where does the insurance industry sit?
As I said, the insurance industry, I mean, there are different players. For example, we are actually observing insurance aggregators. There are appearing many insurance aggregators in the market. But as far as the adoption of insurance by the insurance sector or insurance companies is concerned, that is still, I think, at its infancy stage actually. But as I mentioned that SECP promoted the digital insurance in Pakistan by setting up a new licensing regime, I think. So we become a wholly digital insurer actually. So I think obviously when we bring the digital solutions, obviously it will, I think, put a market pressure on the other players actually to come up with the digital products actually. So I think although as of now the digital adoption is low, but I see it's growing, I think, with exponentially, definitely. Yeah.
Abrar Sab, you are Chief Innovation and Financial Inclusion Officer, but I'm sure you don't do all the innovation for HBL. I'm sure you've got a team around you. How do you enable your innovation business team to think like this? And so I'm fairly sure you understand what I'm saying. Looking at your business through the digital lens, and really that's the essence of innovation. How do you develop a team to think like that?
So first of all, completely agreed. I don't do any thinking or innovation. I am just a facilitator and enabler for these bright, smart young kids who are there. So my role there is only to provide them the right work environment. So to give you an example, we've set up an office space where there are no fixed lines. There are no LAN cables. There are hardly any offices. Typically in the banks or other organizations, you have grade-based offices. I don't wear suits. Nobody wears suits in my office. I think it's important to provide some basic environment to a lot of these younger people out there, to bring them in, to give them a work environment and to give them an environment where they're told that you will not be penalized if something goes wrong. You're free to think. You're actually required to think and think differently wherever possible and come up with ideas. And it's very difficult to control that impulse. I have lots of time because most of my team members are in their late 20s, early 30s, so significantly younger people, or early 20s for that matter. A lot of the time, out of their enthusiasm, they'll come up with some idea. Your first impulsive reaction could be, you're talking absolute nonsense. This is stupid. So to control that impulse and then give them some thoughts and then I try and encourage them to go and build on that thought. So either they will come up with a nicer variant of that, or they will realize themselves that maybe that's not the right thing and they need to move on. So again, to try and encourage people to think, to apply their mind, not be worried that they'll be told they're stupid. No real hierarchies. I am the only executive committee member in the bank who does not have a secretary. Because I think the secretary sends out a message that I'm creating a barrier. You can't reach out to me, I'm something different, I'm somebody special. You don't have the, the freedom to reach out. So I think it's got a lot to do with that mindset that we need to create, the work environment that we need to create, the kind of workspace. I take a lot of pride in that. In fact, yesterday I had a visitor. She works for a hedge fund in Silicon Valley, and her first comment was, I just walked around your office and I couldn't tell if I was in a Silicon Valley office or if I'm in Karachi. So lots of digital screens, lots of small huddle spaces, lots of open areas, complete Wi-Fi, freedom to do whatever you want to do. And I think that work environment and that attitude and that culture, that's the important part. We all can think. I'm sure people sitting in this room, if we ask them, they can come up with 15 new interesting ideas right now on the spur of the moment. But the problem typically in a large corporate organization is your ideas are typically respected based on your grade, or if you got gray hair or not. And that's what we have changed here. That's what we try to encourage, and that's what we respect. So I take pride in the fact that I've got a very, very young team, and I learn from them every day.
Thank you very much. Intriguing answer. Dr. Sara, in many ways you epitomize what I believe conceptually what the business school needs to do, which is to become, in many ways, a domain science. It's not data science. It's understanding your domain through the lens of digital. And so somebody who's dealt with blood and guts and flesh as a doctor, and then to come up with a digital app. What advice would you give us in terms of what are the seeds to lay? Okay? What are the seeds to put in such that we can actually produce graduates that go to Abrar Mir Sahab and actually help him on his path, that helps Farhan Sahab, helps Saeed Asif Sahab on their path. And I'm speaking in the sense that this is a challenge we face, okay? Technology is developing so rapidly that you cannot actually now have a compartmentalized understanding of this and this and this and then produce that integrated mindset. So for somebody who's actually achieved it, what would be the advice you would give?
So I'm still learning, so I don't think I'm senior to give advice, but I can tell you what I think was something which pulled me back is in my medical school, till the time I graduated, till the time I thought of this idea, and I went online and I searched the word entrepreneurship, no one in my entire education had ever mentioned it to me. So I started at 26 and very late. I imagine if I had started thinking that I can build something rather than just seeing patients in my career, if someone had told me that there is another opportunity as a doctor that you can have to actually create something of your own, start it and then expand it, that idea was really alien to me as a doctor. That idea is still alien because academics and entrepreneurship has a disconnect. What I would have benefited from if the place that I was studying from had me shortlisted for the amount of creativity or innovation that I have. So I am not aware of how the recruitment criteria is, but if there is something, because you can't teach entrepreneurship just in a university. It won't come. It has to start from the school level. And there are schools now who give you chickens and say, ke chao ande bech karo in 1 week. They are working on that. So if the recruitment criteria can have, when you're selecting students, someone who's done a project or something of their own in the past, I think that will just give you a data set of students who come with that exposure, who come with that energy, who come with that purpose. Secondly, I see in a lot of universities, there's a lot of great work happening with courses on entrepreneurship. But when you segregate, so for example, when we say female leadership, I think we segregate women with all sort of leadership. It's a segregation. I feel that when you say a course on entrepreneurship, you're treating it as an alien separate thing. Rather than that, if it's integrated within every course as a problem-solving skill, I think that would have immense impact. The third thing that I see is a lot of universities set up incubation centers. I started with 300,000 PKR and a grant of $25,000 that I had to win from a startup competition. If I did not have that, if they had not trusted me with that amount of money, I would not be sitting here today. So yes, it is absolutely critical to provide a space to students to innovate, but then nothing happens without finances. And a student who has no means of making money will always transition into ways of making money rather than piloting their idea because they have no funds. So whatever incubation or innovation space that a university is creating, if they can couple that space with a little bit of angel funding, take equity in the company, that's a huge opportunity, become the first risk taker. That will have such a big change in what we see now, because when I see a lot of female entrepreneurs particularly, I see a lot of them failing in the first 2 years, only because they're not able to manage the funding that they need to grow their idea. I think that is crucial to connect any sort of incubation or innovation that you're doing with a little bit of funding for them to survive for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months, and then they can go on and learn. Fourth thing is, I think it's extremely crucial for them to see it in reality. There are so many startups and technology companies in Pakistan. Just tell them to do their placements, do their internships in those places. Because once you start seeing in reality what happens in startup cultures or technology companies, that is when you get fascinated to create, to innovate. For example, sending a whole lot of students to Abrar for 2 months and just seeing them shadow whatever they're doing, I think that can have immense impacts. We get a lot of interns from universities, and the first time they understand the value of entrepreneurship is when they look at us seeing that, solving that challenge day after day. These are just small things, and I'm sure it's nothing new, but I think a reminder why these things are important is very, very crucial. Because I had that backlog of 10 years to fill. Imagine if I had gotten that information at 16, 17, I would have started 10 years earlier.
Thank you very much. We're coming to the conclusion to this panel discussion. But I just want to end with each of the panelists giving one short statement on what are the challenges in pushing back further the digital envelope in your respective fields. Saeed, sir.
Can you just repeat the question, sir?
One line on the challenges in pushing the digital envelope in your respective field. So what are the challenges you face to overcome adoption of greater technologies? What are the challenges you are facing?
Yeah, I think for the insurance industry, I think the challenge is I think there's a fragmentation of data of various sources actually. For example, we want to connect, for example, with the NADRA, obviously, but there are challenges of security, and NADRA's integration is not generally easily available. So similarly, I think the data in Pakistan is quite fragmented, and it needs to be integrated actually and to made available to different players. Basically. Yeah, I think the data fragmentation and I think lack of you can say a supportive attitude from the government institutions.
Thank you. Abrar, sir.
So I'll just have 3 words: talent, status quo, and unwillingness to experiment.
Thank you very much. Very intriguing.
I would just like to resonate what Dr. Carlton ended her keynote with, that besides the IQ, EQ, the technology quotient is very important now. So it's all about the mindsets. As one of my role, I give orientation to the newcomers in Central Depository Company, and I told them that when they asked that AI is coming, what will happen to us, specifically people from the accounting background, from the business background, because they think that somehow technology people have more edge when it comes to AI and things like that. But I told them that it's not true. Anybody who, whether it's be a technology guy or a non-technology guy, you would not be replaced by AI. You would be replaced by a person who knows AI. So that's the key thing. And if we keep stuck to that with that mindset, I think things can change a lot.
Thank you. Hands up.
Thank you. Dr. Saab, I think change is inevitable, and the pace of change is increasing geometrically. It took a time period of 2 million years between when man started to control fire and the first steam engine. It took 66 years before the first flight by the Wright brothers and for man to put a human being on the moon. This didn't exist 15 years ago.
Yes, indeed.
Right? So my biggest fear is that change is going to come, it's going to come very fast, and unless we are ready to accept and embrace it and adapt to it with an open mind, then remember the story about the call center that I just mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Dr. Sara.
I think, not repeating what the other panelists have said, in the health sector, and Professor also touched upon it, is what I see is patients have different sets of data available in different settings, and whenever they go to a hospital or even to our solution or any place else, they start from point zero because there is no interoperability. So I'm creating primary data from a lot of places where data does not exist before. But whatever data I'm collecting, if I have to send a patient to a tertiary care hospital, their journey will start from point zero again. So unless we open up health data in the country, there's a huge challenge for any digital transformation for a patient journey at an individual level. Second, I think one thing that is not discussed that avidly is there is a lot of wealth gap in converging ourselves to AI, because adapting to AI technology is it's a cost-intensive exercise. So for a third world country to adapt to AI, we can adapt to thousands of AI technology in our platform. Will we be able to afford it as a company sitting in Pakistan, converting into dollar rate every day? I think that gap of financial disparity between the first world and the third world is very important. And that's a challenge that we face.
Thank you very much. This brings to a conclusion the panel discussion. I hope that one of the key take-home messages you take is that it's not about the technology. All of the panelists have spoken about the mindset. And what's critical is to open up the mind so that you're able to understand the domain within the context, within the lens of digital technologies. So with that, I'll conclude the session.
It's in continuation to what Dr. Nora said. Hello. So it's in continuation to what you said about the supply and demand of professionals. In September, I understand, there are laws on the annual in US where these doctors and nurses will be allowed private practice, and besides working for the institution, and that is already creating some kind of an anarchy. So that means a kind of a black swan event is going to occur. So I will continue this question related to Pakistan, a very small question. I know there are time limitations. If you look at Pakistan, I have worked for Philips, and if you look at the data which is available, what data do you have? You have data from inside the company. Do you have data from outside? Very little. Because what happens is, because of tax issues, they would like to hide the data. Even I have seen suppliers hiding, having very high inventory, and I used to say, I'm very good, I have low inventory. But then I found out that they want to manage cash flow, so that's why they do not declare the inventory and so on. So in this economy, where 50% of the data doesn't exist, how do you go about it? Thank you.
Okay, it's quite a sensitive sort of a question. Anybody from the panelists want to take it? Abrar sir.
I think, again, there are two ways of looking at this. So what you say is absolutely right. Having a cash economy limits the kind of data that you can access to. But I generally am the kind of person who likes to focus on the half full glass. So the half full glass part is government has got huge amount of data, whether it is through your FBR, through NADRA, through various other data that they gather, the Bureau of Statistics, various regulators have gathered huge amounts of data. So if only we could start to go out and start looking at creating a kind of open access to the data that we have available across private sector, public sector, the government itself, I think there is a huge, huge opportunity that exists for people to build on those data, to start to create new business models and to come up with new ideas and new challenges. Similarly, when you look at the retail side of it, increasingly now, and now we are actually, with State Bank, we're going to be scaling up a QR on P2M, RAS QR. So again, if there is 500,000 brick and mortar shops that are identified across the country, today at least 100 to 150,000 of those are already accepting digital payments, either through POS machines or QR or mobile to mobile. I, as a bank, through a certain partnership arrangement with a lot of distributors, and I'm not talking about big distributors, I am targeting the smaller distributors. I'm enabling a collection of about ₹500 billion for their cash collection agents from shops at a convenient location closer to those shops. So that is already starting to digitize data with me. So I've got the shopkeepers, I've got the small distributors, and they're okay with that. So we may not know the exact product they are selling or whatever the price margins they have, but we're starting to see some kind of data element. So I think I'm very optimistic that with the smartphone adoption, with mobile wallets becoming a norm, with QR payments acceptance infrastructure coming through, we will see a very large scale digitization of the payments landscape, which in turn will translate into a very interesting data. But while that happens, I think there's a lot of data already there. We just don't digitize. I mean, Bureau of Statistics today publishes the data that you need to then scan, OCR, and only then it gets digitally consumable. Why should it not be made available through APIs? FBR can look at certain data, segregate certain, but make certain things available. NADRA can make certain things available. So a lot of the data already resides with the government and the private sector, but we need to get the right kind of regulatory environment that facilitates and enables an exchange of data in a controlled manner with the right regulatory environment, right controls, the right legal framework has to be in place, the right responsibilities, roles, liabilities, etc. So all of that framework needs to be done, but I think that lots of data is already there.
Okay, thank you very much. This brings to a close our session. So I would like to thank the panelists, Nair Saab, Abrar Saab, Saeed Saab, Farhan Saab, and Dr. Sara. Thank you very much for your time. And let's give them a good round of applause, as Dr. Akram would say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul Basit, and to all our panelists for giving us such an insightful session on how to be a successful business through AI. Thank you so much, everyone.